My late friend, Armin Lehman. Armin was a German, and had a German accent, but I didn't know anything about him beyond that. When I first met him, we were teaching a seminar together in, as I recall, Amsterdam, for a company that did consulting work for the travel industry. I owned a travel agency in Atlanta at the time, and I did a lot of consulting work and a lot of training work all around the world on behalf of this company and also for some of the cruise lines and the airlines and whatnot. And Armin he did the same thing. He was a travel consultant, an international travel consultant who, was teaching these workshops with me for travel agents and people in the industry. And we did this together for 2 or 3 years, like 84 to 86 or thereabouts. And then I moved to Germany. Louise and I sold the travel agency, and we moved to Germany with our kids for a year. And when we came back, I had kind of lost touch with Armin. And we moved to Portland. And Armin called me up one day. I hadn't heard from him in years. And he said, "Tom, I've written a book, and I'd like you to look it over." And I was like, "Sure." And so we got together. He gave me the manuscript for the book. It was, 2 inches thick. And he said, "I don't think I've ever told you this, but on the last day that Adolf Hitler was alive, there was a 16-year-old courier who brought him the news that the war was lost. And after that courier delivered that news to Hitler in person, Hitler turned around and walked into his private quarters with Eva Braun. And that 16-year-old courier, who was me, heard the gunshot when Hitler committed suicide." Armin told me he was there when Joseph and Magda Goebbels poisoned their 6 children. He was 15 or 16 years old. We got his book published. You can, go over to Amazon and plug in Armin Lehman's name, Armin Lehmann. And I don't know if it's still in print because he's been dead for a few years. But he was that courier. If you've ever seen the movie Downfall, it's German, so it's in German language and it's subtitled. But that little kid at the very end of the movie, or throughout the movie, but the kid who brought the news to Hitler, that was my friend Armin Lehman. My dear friend Armin Lehman. I mean, we got to know each other really well. Outside of that little part of his life, and I don't know why he always felt like he had to, keep it from me and from everybody. I mean, when he first came with the manuscript, it was like he was just horribly embarrassed. And he and I talked about this on a number of occasions after that. How did this happen? And he was like, "Well, I was a kid, right? I was part of the Hitler Youth. And in the last year of the war, Hitler said anybody over 14 becomes a soldier." And so, boom, I was suddenly a soldier. And because I was literate and smart and lived in Berlin, I got to be the courier. I just a coincidence of timing and fate and accident. I was Hitler's last courier, which I believe is the title of Armin's book. So what do we do here? What do we do here? Milton Mayer wrote, there's a chapter in his book, toward the end of the book. It's called Peoria über alles. And he talks about, what if Peoria, Illinois had a terrorist attack and we had a demagogue as a mayor or a governor or a president? And he wrote, the Peorian individual surrenders his individuality without a murmur, without indeed a second thought, not just his individual hobbies and tastes, but his individual occupation, his individual family concerns, his individual needs. The primordial community, the tribe, reemerges. Are we hearing a lot about tribal politics right now? Its first function, the preservation of all its members. Every normal personality today becomes an authoritarian personality. A few recalcitrants have to be disciplined vigorously under the circumstances for neglect or betrayal of their duties. A few groups have to be watched, if necessary, taken in hand. The antisocial elements, the liberty howlers, the mob, the agitators among the poor, and the criminal gangs. But for the rest of the citizens, 95% or so of the population, duty is now the central fact of life. They obey at first awkwardly, but surprisingly spontaneously. This is the world that we live in now, or this is the country we live in now. What do we do about this? Other than trying to wake our friends and neighbors up, what can we do?